welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 418, and today's date is July 17th, 2014, and the title of this episode is, Was Malaysian Airliner Brought Down by a Missile to Start a War with Russia? Well, in the beginning, when the story first broke, the corporate media was out there, and Congress was out there, a lot of the senators were out there, all screaming that Russia's going to have to pay for this. They shot down an airliner, and now the story's starting to morph a little bit, and they're starting to remove the blame off of Russia. They're starting to realize that other things might have occurred here, and they might have gotten caught in a plan that was envisioned by the central bankers, which didn't go as they thought. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in this report, but let's get started with the economic collapse news. Now, we understand that Microsoft a couple days ago announced that they were going to be laying off about 6,000 people. Well, that number has tripled to 18,000. And of course, where are all these people going to find jobs? It's the same thing since the beginning of this year, actually going back to last year when the layoffs really started to hit home. We saw Dell, Sony, Barclays, RBS laying off tens of thousands of people. Let's not forget about the retail stores that have been closing and thousands of jobs are being lost there. Where are all these people going to get jobs? I don't believe there's enough part-time work to fill and help all these people. And definitely they're not going to find the full-time at the same pay. So it's going to be a very difficult time, but don't worry. The central bankers, the United States government is out there letting us know that, initial jobless claims have, shrunk again, and people aren't signing up for this, and it looks like the job market is improving, and we know this is a complete lie. It's false, it's phony, it's made up, it's manipulated, and we can see right now that the non-seasonally adjusted initial jobless claims surged to over about 47,000 this week, to its worst in 6 months. 2014 has been the smallest percentage drop in initial claims since the crisis began. To be clear about this whole thing, real initial claims are soaring, but the manipulated magical numbers released from the government shows that they're all dropping and everything looks good. And this is furthest from the truth. We see things getting worse, and of course we have the central bankers, the U.S. government. They are out there now defending the reserve status of the dollar, defending the economy, because they're starting to realize that their made-up, manipulated, illusionary numbers are completely separating themselves from what is happening in the real economy. And we're going to see many more companies lay off as we get through this summer and head into fall, because this is when companies start to ramp up and take a look at everything and start to say, you know what, things look bad, profits are down, we're going to have to really cut a lot of these jobs. And of course, when the market completely crashes, you're going to see what we saw in 2008, people walking out with their boxes and companies completely closing down. And we can see right now that everything is going the opposite way that the central bankers and the U.S. government are telling us. They're telling us there's no inflation. Well, we see right now that Hershey announced that the price of all their chocolate bars is going to be going up about 8%. J.M. Smucker, one of the largest coffee producers in the United States, has announced that they're raising coffee prices by 9%. Starbucks, of course, since coffee's rising, Starbucks is out there saying they are going to raise their prices across the board. Now we're seeing that eggs for fresh use are up by 33%, pork is up by 28%, processed turkey is up by 20%, dairy products are up by 10%, fresh and dry vegetables are up by 8%, and fresh fruits and melons are up by 7%. So we can see right now inflation is hitting the everyday person, and the everyday person does what? Well, they buy the things they need. They need electric, they need gas, they need food, they need lodging, they need clothing, and guess what? All this, we see prices continually rising. So people see inflation. Of course, the United States government, the central bankers, they don't include food and energy, the staples that everyone needs. They don't include that in their inflation calculations. This is why they don't see any inflation. I mean, they're looking at, these crappy products from China that are just plastic nothings, and they're saying, yeah, these aren't going up. Well, of course not. Nobody wants them. Nobody really needs it. But the things that really count is what's going up. Those things will come later. So we can see right now that it is a complete illusion. Now, what are we seeing in the housing market? Well, the housing market is starting to fall apart. Just like we said, we're coming into middle of July, heading into August, and we're passing the hot season right now. And guess what? We're seeing mortgage applications down, refinancing applications down. We're seeing June housing starts. We're expected to print about 1 million to validate, this recovery, but instead it only came in around 893,000. This is a drop, and we can see right now that the drop was in single and multifamily starts. And what does this mean? Well, construction fell by 9.3% in June, and we see applications for building permits. This is considered a good indicator of future activity. They were down by 4.2% in June. So we are seeing everything starting to decline. And when we get out of this summer, it is going to collapse like you've never seen before. It's going to just start to all fall apart. And of course, the Fed is out there and they're saying, oh yeah, we're going to be tapering because the economy's strong, retail's strong, housing's strong. We still have a little bit of work to do, but all they're doing is maneuvering their funds to a different location to keep the bond purchasing going. And this is out in Belgium through Euroclear. We all understand this. And during this time, some huge event will occur during this period to cover up this entire collapse. Now, will it happen exactly on that date? Mostly probably not. Maybe it'll happen a couple months after, maybe before. We don't know. But we know something is in the works. Now, we know that the central bankers and bankers, they're all out there and they're pushing this recovery as hard as they possibly can. And whenever they push something on you, it's always the opposite because they don't have to prove it to you. You would know, you would feel it, you would have extra income, you would have a good job. You would go out and you go, hey, you know what? Let's go buy that new TV. Hey, you know what? Let's go buy that new car because you know why? I'm secure in my job, I'm making good money, and you'd know everything was fine. And the only reason they'd have to push it on you is when everything is fake. And this is what they're doing. Right now, Wells Fargo CEO John Stumpf is out there and he's saying, don't be fooled by the 2.9% contraction in the first quarter. The U.S. economy is stronger than people think. And he's trying to convince everyone like, oh, don't worry, the second quarter, the GDP is going to be like 3-4%, so you don't worry about that. You have no idea what's in store. Yeah, if you manipulate the numbers and you massage them a little bit to try to get them up there, of course the second quarter is going to look like that. But to go from 2.9% all the way up to 3%, that's like a 5.9 increase or so. That is huge. And what we're seeing in housing, in retail, in the job market, the manufacturing, it just doesn't seem like we're going to get there. Now, of course, they can manipulate the numbers, and what they always do is they say, oh, look, we made it, it's 1%, and then a little further down the line, oh, no, we started with 0%, oh, a little bit further down the line, now we're back to negative 3%. And we can see this is exactly where we are headed. Now, of course, the IMF is controlled by the United States. They have the voting right. The IMF was actually formed to be a critical component of the new dollar-dominated global financial system that was created after World War II, Bretton Woods. And the U.S. has far and away the most voting power of about 17.69% share. So nothing really happens in the IMF unless the United States says so. And the United States promised they were going to give away and vote in Congress. This was back in 2010, some of their voting share and give it to the other nations that are upcoming. And they decided not to do this because they realized if they do this, the IMF would start going in a different direction. So since they didn't do this, the BRICS said, you know what, we're going to get together, we're going to form this BRICS bank, this whole entire system, and we don't need the IMF anymore. And we're going to do this on our own. And we can see right now that the U.S. is really not the world's largest economy anymore, and it is the biggest debtor. But if we look at Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they are much, much larger than the United States. They have 40% of the world's population and at least 20% of its output, and on a net basis, almost none of its debt. So we can see right now that the BRIC nations are a huge force. Now, the IMF realizes this, and they're sitting there going, oh, okay, what can we do? Because we don't want to be left in the dark here in this huge collapse. So they're out there saying, oh, we congratulate the BRIC nations. Yeah, we're happy to work with them. Anything they need, we will go along with them and we will help them. But you know this is completely ridiculous. They did it to be separate and apart from the IMF because the United States wouldn't go ahead with that vote to give more power to the other nations. And we can see right now that the IMF is desperate, they're delusional, and they realize that the dollar-based financial system is completely finished. They understand this, they know it, and the rest of the world knows it. The only ones that don't know it are the people of the United States who haven't woken up yet, who think that everything is fine. But the rest of the world, they're protecting themselves. They're making deals with Russia, with China. They want their gold back. China's buying gold. Russia's buying gold. Everyone is preparing for this dollar collapse, except for mostly the people here in the United States who really don't understand what's going on, except for those people like whoever's listening here, realizes that, yes, I'm buying gold, I'm protecting myself, I'm getting food, because we see things really starting to escalate now. It's really starting to move forward, and things are really getting out of hand. Now, we understand still that these illegal aliens are still coming over the border, and it's not going to stop. But what's very interesting is that the government is ready to spend $50 million on a resort to handle the young illegal immigrants. And now this resort, I saw pictures of it. It has swimming pools, it has a gym, has a nice like cafeteria, eating area. Now the question to me, $50 million. What about the veterans living on the street? What about those people, the U.S. citizens who fought for this country, who can't get the medical assistance, who can't find a job? What about that money going to them? What about the people in Detroit who are having their water shut off, where the entire city is completely bankrupt? Why aren't we protecting and sending this to our own people? Because this is part of their agenda. And I discussed this in the other reports, and we know this is part of their plan. They don't care about the people in the United States. They could care less. They rather have these people without the Constitution, without the Bill of Rights. They rather us not be even thinking or anything like that. They just want us following orders, and they don't care about anything else, because you have to remember the central banks, the Federal Reserve, is a corporation. Their product is debt. Giving them money here inside the United States to help their own people, it doesn't do anything for them. They need to send this money outside, to send it to different organizations, and this is exactly what they're doing. Now, we can see that the United States and the EU, and UK, they're getting prepared for civil unrest. And of course, the United States has DHS, which has infiltrated all local law enforcement to come to compliance, and this is how they're creating the force here. In the EU, EU is gearing up against internal unrest, and the UK is doing the same thing. They're ordering water cannons. They're getting prepared for some type of civil unrest. And the EU, the police force there, they are described as the robust police issues because they have a better weaponry, armored vehicles, and military training. Therefore, they can also be used on the edge of military hostilities or any type of rioting or civil unrest within the EU. They are under the command of the responsible Department of Defense, and right now, because of the Solidarity Clause, which has been created, the regulation defines that the EU must use all the means at its disposal if a member state is affected by some type of crisis and they can't handle it alone. This force will come in and help. So we can see every single place is getting ready for something to go down. Some type of crisis, some type of civil unrest, some type of active war or terrorist attack. They are preparing and getting ready. Now, we understand that the United States, and of course Obama was out there discussing how he's going to be pulling the troops out of Afghanistan, and I've been saying for a very long time that is absolutely a huge, huge lie. They are never leaving Afghanistan. First of all, it's a strategic location. Second of all, they grow poppies there to pay for all their covert missions, which is then turned into opium and sold all across the world. Plus, the deposits of copper, lithium are in Afghanistan, and China is also there pumping in billions of dollars of infrastructure. And wherever China is, the United States central bankers must be there. So what are they doing right now? Well, John Kerry is out there, and he's trying to manipulate the elections in Afghanistan. Why is he doing this? He's in there because he wants a president that will sign the bilateral security deal. And this agreement allows the United States to stay inside Afghanistan for who knows how long. And once that is signed, you are going to see really nobody leaving Afghanistan. You'll see them adding troops to Afghanistan, and they're trying to get this signed. President Karzai would not sign it. Now there's a new election going on. Of course, the United States is inside trying to manipulate and get the person they want to. Once they get them in there, then they will sign the bilateral security agreement, and they are pushing this as hard as they possibly can. Now, in eastern Ukraine, the people there, the Donetsk People Republic Prime Minister, saying that they would like to stop this war. There's a lot of killing going on. He is open, and the people there are open to any type of dialogue, but they want to have a dialogue, and they want this fighting to come to an end. They want to come to an agreement, but Poroshenko, he does not want any type of an agreement. He is taking in his orders from the banks. He knows what he has to do. He knows he has to provoke Russia, and this is not going to stop. And of course, the people there must be tired. They are, civilians who live in Ukraine, and this must be exhausting. They have families, and we can see in Ukraine also that they have this whole draft system going, and soldiers are coming to Ukrainian families' homes, taking the children away to fight in this anti-terrorism type of war here. And the family members are saying, "No, we don't want to do this," and they're fighting back, saying, "No, do not take our children." Now, we understand that United States has placed sanctions on Russia once again, and this is on a lot of individuals, a lot of businesses. But right now, the real losers of these sanctions on Russia are the American businesses. U.S. sanctions against foreign nations are hurting American businesses. Two giant U.S. business groups, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and National Association of Manufacturers, were in ads in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post protesting sanctions against Russia. What they're saying is that it's hurting the businesses here in the United States. It is not helping anything, and these sanctions against all of these people and companies inside Russia really doesn't do anything. At this time, most of them have removed all their assets out of the West, and they are contained within Russia, within Crimea, and they're really not sitting there worrying about this anymore. But of course, the United States, the central bankers, need to keep this pretext up, like, look, we're doing something, don't worry. Now, there was propaganda out there saying that Russia is ready to open up their new spy base in Cuba. And of course, what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring back that Cold War era, and they're trying to demonize Russia any way they possibly can. So they're going to start making up a lot of things. We've already seen it out of Ukraine, out of NATO, and of course here in the United States, where they're continually saying that Russia is building up troops. Russia is, bringing in troops into Ukraine. They're going to invade. They're setting up this spy system inside of Cuba and Russia right now, and Putin is out there saying absolutely not. We are not setting up any type of radar spy system there whatsoever. And if they really wanted to spy on, they would have satellites. They don't even need the base down in Cuba. And we can see right now that this is complete propaganda, and we see propaganda flying everywhere today. Now, we understand the Malaysian flight came crashing down in Donetsk on the Ukrainian side. Now, what I believe happened, it looks like what they were trying to do is make it look like the plane was shot down by Russia and they wanted this plane to come down inside Russia. Now, there's other theories going on here, and we can see how all of this might look, you know, all of it might work out, or all of it could be possibly true. So the first theory right now is that it looks like they wanted to shoot down a plane, make it look like it was Russia, because they're using the Buk missile system, and they're saying that, oh, the Ukrainian government doesn't have the Buk missile system, and this Buk missile system is a missile system that can take down airliners. They have a radar system attached. It's not just a one-person operation. There's many people that need to operate this to get the missile fired in the proper direction. And we can see they might have been using this to down the plane, blame it on Russia, and say, look, you see, Russia is attacking. Why are they doing this? Oh, my God. And, of course, the lawmakers are out there, and they are screaming that, you know, if Russia did this, there's going to be hell to pay. This is coming from Senator John McCain. Representative Adam Schiff, a senior member of the Intelligence Committee, said if the crash was caused by the pro-Russian separatists, it represents a tragic and dramatic escalation to this conflict, because you have to remember their whole entire agenda is to get Russia to do something and to start a war. And if they're not going to do it, they will do it for them. Now, of course, they're out there saying, oh no, Ukraine, we had nothing to do with this. We don't even have the Buk missile system. But a Ministry Defense White Book in 2008 shows that Ukraine was going to pretty much modernize their Buk M1 anti-missile system and their S-300s. So they actually do have these missile systems inside of Ukraine. And, of course, they're screaming, no, we don't. Russia's already denying that they had anything to do with this whatsoever. The plane came down in the Donetsk region, and we can see right now that all of this is starting to look like this was from Ukraine, because there are some inside sources that had some data recording systems that kind of captured this, where Ukraine armed forces were dispatched, and the Buk anti-craft missile system battalion was sent to the city of Donetsk on Wednesday. Another battalion of the same weapons is said to be in the process of embarkation in the city of Kharkiv, northwest of Donetsk. So we are seeing stories come out now that, yes, they had and they were maneuvering these missile systems to these different locations. And what's very interesting about this is that President Putin's plane was flying almost the same exact route as the Malaysian Airline MH17. And I'm wondering, because the Malaysian Airline left 17 minutes later, if they got confused and they really meant to shoot down President Putin's plane, because he's just returning from the BRIC nation. Of course, they understand that he's setting all this up to pretty much combat the dollar right now, and I'm wondering if they were doing this to assassinate Putin. And we can see right now, again, there's many theories out there, many things going on, but we see that the Ukraine forces did position their missile system. We can see that of course, the people in these regions do not have this advanced equipment. I mean, maybe they stole it, but they would have to learn how to use it, and they would have to be trained on it to have that exact type of firing. And I don't know if these people actually have that type of expertise. And Russia, when we look at this, what is their motivation? Why would they do this? Well, they don't have a motivation. What is the motivation of the central bankers, the puppet regime, Poroshenko? Well, the dollar is collapsing. Russia took away Crimea. The southeastern section had a referendum. They've been trying to provoke Russia by shelling people in the Donetsk region of Russia. They've been driving tanks into Russia. They're trying to provoke as best they possibly can, and I believe they thought if they could shoot down this plane, bring it down on the Russian side, or even shoot down Putin, there would be some type of war going on, because if Putin was shot down, all of a sudden Russia would retaliate. Of course, Ukraine would deny it. If it was meant for the Malaysian flight and they can blame it on Russia, they were trying to provoke Russia to come in. And this is what it's starting to look like. Now, it's very interesting that this happened at the same exact time that Israel decided to launch their ground invasion in Gaza. Now, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't really see a coincidence here. This was most likely planned from the beginning, because right now Israel has started their ground invasion. Israel Army declines to comment on report of ground invasion. Heavy artillery fire, explosions heard throughout Gaza. Operation includes forces on the ground, air, and sea, and operation is on a wide scale in this area. So we can see right now that all of this is being done all at once, because again, the central bankers, the U.S. government, they need to get this war started any way they possibly can. Now, of course, a couple days ago I talked about the Iron Dome and how a Israeli scientist was out there saying that it's a complete hoax. The system really doesn't work. A lot of the times that you're hearing that they're bringing down these missiles really is just a computer simulation. This doesn't mean that Hamas is not firing missiles. What it means is they're lying about where these missiles are being intercepted and how well Iron Dome is working. But of course, the United States is out there saying, well, Iron Dome is working so well, let's send more money to Israel. They're sending $350 million for Israel's Iron Dome, double what the Obama administration requested. Each one of these missiles fired costs about $50,000. So on one hand, we have an Israeli scientist saying that the system really doesn't work. And on the other hand, the U.S. Senate is sending double the amount of money to keep the system operational. Now, is this money actually going to Iron Dome? Most likely not. Now, we understand that the nuclear talks now with Iran are pretty much coming to an end on the 20th. The interim deal ends on the 20th. Obama is out there, and he is saying that they might have to extend the deadline. Over the next few weeks, he will continue to consult with Congress to see if they should extend the deadline. Most of Congress right now is saying no, they shouldn't. Of course, he might override this with his pen and paper and do whatever he wants, but right now it doesn't seem like they're going to extend this, but this can change depending on what the president does. If he decides not to work with Congress and just say, yes, I'm extending this, then we know that he's in bed and he's doing this on purpose, and the whatever event is set up is not ready to go. Now, we can see right now that John Kerry is speaking out, saying yes, they might impose more sanctions on Iran, heavy sanctions, and we can see that all of this is starting to come to a head right now, because we see the talks breaking down on the 20th. They end. We see them talking about new sanctions. We see the Islamic State, which is a CIA, Mossad, British government-run enterprise. The head, Baghdadi, he is a CIA operative. They were put in there to create chaos, to show that they're bloody, to show that they're dangerous, that they're 10 times worse than al-Qaeda. They're put in there to show everyone that this is the new poster child for the next event here in the United States and in Europe, to bring the entire world into war. And you can see this is continually spreading, it's nonstop, and they're pushing this agenda. Now, it looks like the police in New York are looking at Al-Qaeda Inspire magazine, and they're seeing now, of course this is a propaganda magazine and Al-Qaeda is really CIA, but they're saying that it looks like Al-Qaeda is looking to bomb the U.S. Open Tennis Championship, which is going to happen on August 25th. It also lists other targets, Washington, D.C., Virginia, and other areas in New York. And they're saying that the article states, that it shows the terrorists, how to make the bombs, where to set them off, and this is all propaganda, fear tactics to make everyone afraid in what is going on here. And you can see they're continually pushing this, and as we get closer and closer to this October date, we will most likely see a major major event. You have to remember the president is looking to have this new switch where he can talk to everyone here in the United States all at the same time. And we have to remember, I really do believe that this event that's going to occur is going to happen in stages. It's not going to happen like, oh, chemical weapons, bioweapons, nuclear weapons, cyber attack all at once. I think it's going to happen slowly because they want to get the message out. They want to make sure that everyone understands. And he wants to get his time on air to let everyone know that this is really coming. And we can see at first that it would be cyber attacks hitting the financial institutions where they have to shut down the banks, where he makes an announcement. Then we can see explosions hitting in all different areas, him coming out saying that, yes, they are attacking multiple cities, looking at Washington, Chicago, New York, and then eventually certain cities would be blacked out from physical and cyber attacks, and he would make announcements to the rest of the world who still has power. So all of this is not going to happen at once. I think there's going to be many different stages during a certain period of time to bring the country and make them drop to their knees and beg for war. They have to do this in a very big way, and we have to remember what the government officials are telling us. I think it was John McCain who said the next attack here in the United States is going to be nothing like 9/11 because it's going to be 10 times worse. And I think this is what they're planning on. They know this is the end game. They know this is it. And they've been pre-positioning all the military assets all across the world to get ready for this war. And this is what they've been preparing for. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.